They gathered beneath the mirrored dome of the Dominion Council, a cathedral of glass and gold suspended above the capital world. Twin suns flared through the lattice ceiling, glinting against ceremonial armor polished to perfection. 12 species sat around the obsidian table, scaled, feathered, luminous, each one a sovereign of conquest. None had known fear in centuries. A projection flickered into existence between them, the Terran fleet. Crude, angular hulls. Steel plating thick enough to stop meteor strikes but incapable, the analysts claimed, of surviving modern plasma. No ornamentation. No insignia. Machines built for function, not art. They still use combustion engines in their atmospheric craft. Rasped the Voth speaker, his translucent throat pulsing with laughter. And kinetic rounds. Slugs of metal. Primitive beyond pity. Laughter spread like a contagion, amplified by the hall's resonance field. The more they mocked, the lighter the room became. The Grand Marshal of the Council, Orion Kale, leaned forward. His silver mandibles clicked as he studied the human vessels. They believe armor compensates for ignorance. They worship density. Let them? A younger delegate, a crystalline form from the Lyran assemblage, hesitated. And yet, Marshal, their homeworld survived 3 planetary wars. Should they not be crushed for their insolence? Kal interrupted. Not studied. The Lyran dimmed into silence. The Council's adjutant entered, bearing data sheets lined with casualty forecasts. Projected engagement, 47 minutes, she announced. Estimated losses, negligible. 10,000 Dominion vessels versus 70 of theirs. 70? Kal tilted his head. How quaint! A murmur of amusement rippled through the chamber. The delegates adored ratios. They made domination poetic. A holomap unfurled across the table, showing Sol System encircled in red. Planetary icons glowed: faint blue Earth, Mars, Luna. The Marshal raised one claw. Transmit the declaration to their system. Let every colony and every subject of the Dominion watch. It will be an act of education. And the broadcast script? The adjutant asked. Kal's mandibles curved in what passed for a smile. Begin with mercy and with superiority. The chamber's light dimmed as the Dominion anthem surged through the speakers. Billions across the core tuned in. Screens lit up in markets, academies, military halls. The image of Earth blue and clouded, fragile against the black-filled every broadcast band. People of Terra, Kal began, voice translated across 5,000 dialects, your isolation has ended. The Dominion extends its final invitation, surrender and integration. Refuse, and your species will be remembered for its brief defiance. He paused, allowing the silence to stretch. Somewhere across the transmission delay, Earth did not answer. They think us bluffing, muttered the Voth speaker. Kale continued. In our archives, your weapons are relics of a barbaric age: iron and smoke, fuel and fire. You build walls instead of enlightenment. You coat your ships in metal instead of faith. You are, he gestured, and the screen zoomed on a Terran battleship. Its gray hull bore the scars of old wars, no gleam, no ornament. A civilization of rust. Another delegate, the sleek Ilarian diplomat, chuckled. They even call their ship classes after extinct animals. Wolves, eagles, lions. How symbolic of extinction. Wolves still bite, said someone quietly. But the remark vanished beneath collective laughter. Punchline hit. Let them snarl, Kal said. We bring silence. The vote to annihilate Earth was unanimous. 12 sigils illuminated in red across the Council's ring. Protocol required a ceremonial broadcast of intent to demonstrate unity. The anthem swelled again as banners unfolded from the ceiling, symbols of conquered worlds stitched in light. Kale rose, spreading his 4 arms to the recording drones. This day, he declared, marks the final extinction of fear in the galaxy. Applause thundered through the dome. Outside, 1,000 carriers turned their hulls toward Sol, engines burning gold. The Armada's formation expanded into a sphere of measured perfection, 10,000 vessels, calibrated by symmetry algorithms, every vector flawless. Reporters recited commentary for public feed. Operation Cleansing begins. Objective: neutralize the Terran anomaly within one rotation. Estimated duration: 47 minutes. Behind the spectacle, silence from Earth persisted. No reply, no negotiation. Kal watched the quiet blue dot expand on his holographic display. He mistook the calm for fear. "End the broadcast," he ordered. "By the next sunrise, let there be nothing left to fear." The screens dimmed. The council dispersed amid laughter and ceremony. Dot above them. The stars reflected in the glass dome bright, innumerable. And ancient. Dot. None of the delegates noticed that one of those distant lights was moving. Dot. It was a Terran relay ship. Closing the distance at a speed Dominion instruments did not yet comprehend. The universe had just exhaled before the storm. They arrived with ceremony. 10,000 Dominion vessels unfolded from slipspace around Mars' orbit, their entry shockwaves cascading across the void like auroras. Gold and violet hulls shimmered against the red planet's haze. Every ship streamed the event live. Billions watched the moment the Great Dominion reached the backwater system called Sol. Grand Marshal Orion Kal stood within the bridge of the flagship's sanctity of order. His eyes drank the spectacle, a perfect lattice of Dominion might. "Record this transmission," he ordered. Humanity's last silence. The command towers glowed as communications arrays flared to life. Waves of encoded dominance swept outward. Formal hails, surrender demands, declarations of superiority, all translated into primitive Terran frequencies. No reply. Static filled the channel. Seconds stretched. Then minutes. "Tri-lunar relays," the adjutant murmured. "Already done." No response. Kal's mandibles tightened. Around him, the bridge shimmered with holographic data maps, trajectories, environmental readings. The humans had not deployed planetary shields. Their orbital stations were cold. Mars bases dark. Even their satellites drifted in silent decay. The Dominion officers exchanged amused glances. "Perhaps they have fled?" one suggested. "Then we erase what remains," Kal said. He raised a claw. Fleet groups advanced to engagement range. Standard formation. Prepare to strike within the hour. The orders rippled through the formation, carried on quantum bands. Thrusters flared. 10,000 warships aligned in a perfect trihelix, forming the grand sphere of conquest. Their sensor webs stretched across 3.1 light hours. Nothing could hide, except something did. A blip appeared on the periphery of the tactical map, small, unarmed. By initial reading, it glided near the asteroid belt, unresponsive. "Identify," Kal snapped. "Signal unknown," the sensor chief said. "Non-plasma drive signature. Metallic ion burn. Ancient configuration." "Ancient," Kal repeated, almost smiling. "A relic." Punchline hit. "Then let relics witness progress." He gestured toward the holomap. The fleet advanced, elegant arcs tracing through the void. But beneath the perfection, the Dominion's transmissions continued unanswered. Earth remained dark. From orbit, the blue planet turned slowly, clouds veiling its continents. Sensors found no defense grid, no energy spikes, no visible movement. Just the hum of oceans and the pulse of a living biosphere. "They truly have nothing," whispered the Lyran envoy. "They're waiting to die." Kal leaned closer to the viewport. "Then let them wait no longer." A proximity alert cut through the bridge, soft, mechanical, almost embarrassed. One of the Dominion frigates had detected mass displacement beyond Mars' orbit. Readings: multiple objects 300 kilometers apart. Velocity negligible. The image resolved. Steel. Angular hulls. Cold geometry. No radiation signature. No visible markings. Yet every ship faced the Dominion fleet with mathematical alignment, as if drawn along a single invisible axis. "Count them," Call said. 67, sir." A pause. The number sounded deliberate. Another officer frowned. No transponder codes. No power signatures. Wait. The human vessels lit up, one by one. No radio waves. No speeches. Just the ignition of drive cores, white, steady, synchronized. All Dominion ships paused. For the first time in generations, they hesitated. Every Terran thruster burn occurred within a tenth of a second, exact across all 67 ships. The formation rotated, aligning broadside in silence. "Are they signaling?" asked the Lyran. "No," Call whispered. "They are readying." The Dominion flagship broadcast a final demand. "Terran Command, this is Grand Marshal Orion Kal of the Galactic Dominion. You are encircled. Acknowledge surrender." No reply, only the deep hum of the void. Then the human flagship advanced slowly. Precisely, the light of soul glancing off its armor. Its hull bore no flag. No emblem, only the stenciled words in block white, "TNS Valor." The Dominion's translators found no encryption. No broadcast, no sound, yet across every tactical screen, one pattern appeared: sensor code repeating every second like a heartbeat. Old Terran distress code. SOS. Not a plea. A marker, a declaration that the silence was ending. Every Dominion commander stared at their displays as static swept their channels. Sensors began to distort, magnetic noise spiking beyond calibration. Interference? Negative. Source unknown. Through the viewport, the Terran formation held its line. Still no comes. Still no panic. Only movement, slow, deliberate, and unified. Call felt the first cold twist of unease. "They refuse to speak," he muttered. "Then they'll listen to fire." He turned away, unaware that every Terran ship had already locked trajectories without a single word spoken. The order came without ceremony. Fire. 10,000 Dominion vessels unleashed the storm. Plasma beams lanced across the void, merging into a single white inferno that swallowed the Terran formation whole. Light flooded the darkness until even Mars disappeared behind the glare. The transmission feed surged to every world in the Dominion billions, watching the elegant precision of their fleet as it erased a primitive species. For 43 seconds, the universe became pure radiance. Then the light began to bend. The plasma streams didn't strike and disperse, they folded. The Dominion sensors registered impossible readings. Thermal gradients reversing, energy scattering outward in coherent arcs. What had been a blinding assault now looked like sunlight glancing off polished glass. "Report," Call demanded. The data officer's frills flattened. Energy absorption detected. 97% of output. Neutralized. Neutralized? Magnetic sheathing around enemy hulls, adaptive layers. The plasma diffuses before contact. Call's mandibles clicked once. That's not possible. Plasma at that density should vaporize them. Yes, Marshal. Punchline hit. And yet, they are still there. The glare faded, revealing the Terran ships intact, cold, and motionless. Their armor glowed faintly red at the edges, as if basking in warmth. Across Dominion channels, confusion spread. Sensor nodes flickered with contradictory reports. Target mass still present. Heat signatures inconsistent. Range offsets fluctuating by microns. Check your optics. barked a commander. "We're reading after images." But the images did not fade. The Terran fleet rotated, 30 degrees portside, the movement so perfectly synchronized it resembled machinery rather than intent. Their hulls glimmered with faint blue halos, the magnetic fields that had turned the field, Dominion's proudest weapon, into wasted light. "New readings," shouted the technician. "They're venting plasma residue, intentionally refracting it." Call stared at the display. The human formation had transformed the attack into a spectacle, arcs of refraction curving into luminous rings around them, like halos of fire bending away. On public broadcasts across the Dominion, anchors fell silent. Commentators tried to explain, then faltered. The footage no longer resembled victory. "Was this expected?" whispered the Lyran envoy. "No," Call said. "This is mockery." The plasma streams faded entirely. Space cooled. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then Dominion sensors began to collapse under interference. Magnetic harmonics overloaded targeting grids. Telemetry feeds froze. Ship after ship reported rangefinder anomalies. Static in the ComNet. Multiple sensor redundancies failing. "They've blinded us, how?" Call clenched his mandibles. "Their shields are causing harmonic echoes. Recalibrate at new frequencies." The engineer's claws trembled. "Marshal, every frequency we test feeds back noise. It's like their fields are listening. Listening, recording, waiting." A murmur ran through the bridge crew. For the first time in living memory, Dominion discipline cracked. "Send a secondary volley," Call snapped. "Increase power to 120%. Saturation mode." "Understood." The second barrage fired, a storm of blue plasma that could have turned asteroids to vapor. It vanished into the same refractive field, dispersing harmlessly across invisible sheaths. The humans didn't even shift position. Only their drive cores brightened. Faint pulses rippling like synchronized heartbeats. A new reading appeared. Magnetic inversion at 31.1 per ship cluster. Each pulse emitted in identical rhythm. "What are they doing now?" "They're charging kinetic systems," the weapons officer said softly. "Accelerators aligning." Call turned toward the viewport. The Terran fleet glowed faintly, their drive exhausts tracing ghostly trails against the dark. "They survived 2 full salvos," the Lyran envoy whispered, "without firing once." Call said nothing. Another officer spoke, voice brittle. "Sir, Dominion Command requests confirmation of kill ratio." Public feed still broadcasting success message. "Maintain it," Call ordered. "We control the narrative." But the data feeds betrayed him. Live telemetry now displayed 67 intact Terran signatures. The numbers didn't lie. A quiet dread spread through the fleet as the realization settled. Their strongest weapon had done nothing. "Across Dominion comes." A single phrase repeated among officers and crew alike. Quiet. Disbelieving. They didn't even flinch. In the cold shadow between Mars and Sol, the Terran formation adjusted alignment once more. A geometric perfection locked into place. Broadside configuration. Every barrel aimed forward. Inside the sanctity of order, the alarms fell silent. The Dominion's fleet, for all its might, held its breath. Call whispered the truth and none dared voice. They were never defending. He turned toward the tactical map just in time to see the first kinetic signatures light up. For 3 heartbeats, nothing moved. Then the Terran fleet broke the silence. 67 ships ignited in unison, drive cones erupting with pure white light. They didn't surge forward, they snapped sideways. A formation translation so abrupt it defied Dominion mathematics. Sensors screamed. Trajectory prediction software failed before it could finish its first calculation. Acceleration spike detected 31 gravities sustained, shouted the flight engineer. Vector variance beyond combat parameters. On the bridge of the Sanctity of Order, Grand Marshal Kale gripped the railing, eyes locked to the tactical map. That's impossible. At that thrust, inertial dampeners collapse. Unless, whispered the Lyran envoy, they've learned to live with pain. Across the void, the Terran formation fractured into shifting vectors, each ship bending around gravitational wells in perfect synchronicity. Their motion wasn't random. It was orchestrated. Angular momentum swapped between squadrons like gears in a machine. Dominion tracking AI recalculated 1 billion trajectories and failed everyone. The targeting overlay flickered red. Error. Trajectory lock lost. Variance threshold exceeded. 0.02 seconds. Weapons fire streaked after ghosts. Plasma bolts twisted toward coordinates humans had already vacated milliseconds earlier. The sky lit with wasted brilliance, blinding every Dominion viewport. Call's command staff shouted updates over one another. Tracking systems desinced. Predictive loops failing. Auto-target software requesting manual input. Manual. The word was an insult. Dominion warfare had not required human touch in centuries. But the algorithms built for elegance couldn't chase savagery this precise. The human ships darted between plasma streams, their hulls flaring white-hot under frictionless burns. Then, without warning, they cut thrust to 0. 67 ships halted as one, inertial dampers flaring like stars. Punchline hit. "They're playing with us," someone whispered. "Impossible," Call snapped. "No one can maneuver at those Gs. No one survives it." But Dominion scanners betrayed him again. Each Terran ship pulsed with biosign data stable. No casualty markers. No neural disruptions. Whatever was inside those hulls wasn't breaking. It was thriving. "Marshal," said the adjutant quietly, "their kinetic batteries are charging. Range? 70,000 kilometers and closing." "Primitive kinetics can't reach that far," scoffed the weapons officer. The Lyran envoy turned, voice dry. "Neither can we track them." "Perhaps that's the point." Through the viewport, streaks of plasma flashed outward in desperation. The Dominion fleet, designed for coordinated elegance, now fired in chaos. 10,000 ships, each reacting a fraction too slow, filled the void with disorder. Human formations cut through it like scalpels. Each Terran vessel shifted thrust again. Microburns flickering like Morse code 31G bursts, translating into kilometers of repositioning in mere seconds. Every movement followed a rhythm, a silent doctrine of motion that Dominion analysts couldn't name. "Marshal, predictive combat net collapsing." "We're reading trajectory multipliers 19, no 22. "Then lock manual," Call ordered. "Track visually." But even vision betrayed them. The Terran hulls blurred at the edges, outlines warping as magnetic sheaths flexed under stress. Every camera frame carried different coordinates. Dominion viewers across the Empire stared at the live feed. Convinced it was glitching.WSN single quotes T.1 Dominion officer gasped. "They've disappeared." "No," Call said slowly. "They're right behind us." The tactical hologram twisted, recalibrating. The Terran fleet had reappeared directly after the Dominion formation, still in perfect alignment. No drive flare, no approach signal, no warning. Just the cold geometry of ships now pointing downrange. Call's mandibles trembled. "How did they—" "Spatial projection confirmed, sir. They used our plasma residuals as thrust mirrors. Reflected energy burn gave them recoil vector." The bridge fell silent. Dominion science had no term for what they had just witnessed, using enemy fire as propulsion. Across the fleet channels, fear began to surface as static-laced murmurs. Veterans who had never spoken of superstition whispered ancient words. Revenants. Voidborn, ghosts of metal. Kal steadied himself. Order every vessel to recalibrate targeting to kinetic detection. Plasma is useless against. A low vibration interrupted him. Dominion ships vibrated under shockwave analysis, the background hum of magnetic compression. The human fleet's engines roared once more, power readings spiking beyond safe limits. Their closing range, said the adjutant, voice pale. How close? 32,000 kilometers. Prepare for he never finished. The Dominion targeting network went dark. All sensors flashed the same code across every display. Contact. 67 velocity anomaly 31 grams continuous. The data scrolled too fast to read. The last visible number before the system shut down was a velocity ratio. Primitive kinetics exceeding C-beam. Tracking by 0.06 seconds. Not faster than light. Just faster than arrogance. In the silence that followed, the human fleet leveled its weapons. Every Dominion ship in visual range saw the same impossible thing, those relics of steel. Perfectly still, every barrel aligned as if the void itself had chosen its executioner. They did not warn. They did not transmit. They simply fired. 67 Terran warships opened their magnetic rails in the same instant, and the void screamed. Tungsten slugs, dense, silent, unmarked, crossed the darkness faster than thought. No heat, no light, no radiation trail to track. Just kinetic inevitability. Each round weighed 4 tons. Each one moved at a fraction below light speed. When they struck, the universe shuddered. The first Dominion carrier vanished before its alarm finished sounding. The impact converted hull, crew, and atmosphere into expanding plasma ribbons that tore through nearby ships. One kinetic round became a chain of annihilation. Multiple losses. Shouted the sensor chief aboard the Sanctity of Order. We've lost 3,000 ships already. Kal stared, frozen. The tactical map was dissolving. Red icons vanished faster than his mind could comprehend. Identify the source. Plasma? Antimatter? Neither, the weapons analyst whispered. Metal. Compressed tungsten. Unguided. Unguided? Yes, Marshal. They don't miss. Punchline hit. They don't need to aim when the laws of physics obey them. In 3 minutes, the Dominion formation ceased to exist. The slugs cut through kilometer-thick armor, through reactor cores, through bridges. Entire vessels evaporated under thermal shock. Even near misses killed crews with gravitational shear. 9,800 ships. Gone. 340 seconds from the first flash to the last data echo. The Dominion's command lattice stuttered, then failed entirely. Drones that had once synchronized entire fleets now transmitted static. AI systems crashed under incomprehensible telemetry. The Dominion builders of perfect order faced absolute entropy. Kal clung to the railing as the Sanctity of Order buckled under the shockwave of vaporized allies. Warning sirens wailed across the deck. Retreat vectors, he shouted. All surviving units scatter. No one moved. The Terran fleet wasn't chasing. They held formation, motionless. Drive cores cooled. Rail batteries cycled to idle. The Dominion's terror had no outlet, no enemy to charge, no target to hate. Only silence. Kal forced his trembling mandibles closed. Re-establish comes. I want visual confirmation of enemy losses. The technician's claws hovered above the console. Marshal. There are no enemy losses. Kal turned. The human formation 67 signatures remained untouched. He watched as faint light rippled along their hulls, a synchronized pulse like breath. Then the signal came, compressed packets, unencrypted, broadcast across open frequencies. The Dominion's receivers decoded it instantly. Engagement complete. Recording submitted to Tribunal Archive. The bridge fell silent. What tribunal? Asked the Lyran envoy. Kal's throat felt dry. Ours, apparently. The message repeated, this time accompanied by raw footage from Dominion sensors. Every Terran camera angle matched perfectly with their own logs. The impacts, the destruction, the timestamps identical. The humans had mirrored Dominion surveillance in real time, documenting every casualty. Why record this? The envoy asked, voice shaking. Why not finish us? Kal stared at the final line of text on his display. Judgment rendered. Hostilities may cease. Medical corridors will open upon compliance. Medical corridors. Mercy from the victors. Across what remained of the Dominion fleet, panic dissolved into disbelief. Crews stared through shattered viewports at the drifting wreckage of comrades. At the halo of particulate light around Mars orbit. And the command decks of surviving ships, officers began to receive secondary transmissions, coordinates for evacuation, treatment, surrender. Not threats, instructions. The Terrans had turned slaughter into procedure. The public broadcast continued, across Dominion space. Billions saw not revenge, but record-keeping. Every frame annotated, every loss quantified. Justice disguised as annihilation. Punchline hit. They call it war, Kal murmured, but they fight like witnesses. The sanctity of order drifted, engines offline, its hull peppered by micrometeor fragments from the slaughter. Kal looked once more toward Sala, bright blue marble behind the haze of vaporized fleets. No triumphant comes. No demands. Just the faint hum of Terran systems recording aftermath data. Each ship logging coordinates, mass displacement, radiation fallout. Evidence for some court no alien had ever imagined. He exhaled, the sound hollow inside his helm. End transmission, he ordered softly. Outside, the Terran ships rotated as one, their rails cooling to darkness. Then they simply waited still, patient, implacable. In 340 seconds, the Dominion's illusion of superiority had ended, and humanity hadn't even raised its voice. No pursuit followed. No final strike. Only silence. The Dominion remnants floated in chaos-broken formations, drifting hulks, voices screaming over emergency channels. Where 10,000 had stood, barely 200 limped through the wreckage, their systems flickering. Their command network gone. Yet the Terrans did not advance. The 67 ships held position in perfect stillness, drives dimmed to idle blue. Then one signal cut through the static. A tight band transmission, unencrypted, transmitted across every known frequency simultaneously. Ceasefire declared. Medical corridors open. We do not kill prisoners. The words echoed across the wreckage like judgment wrapped in calm. On the sanctity of order, Grand Marshal Kal stared at the message replaying across his consoles. They're mocking us, he said. A trap. But then his sensors flared massive power readings, not weapons. Thousands of Terran medbays vented light into the void, projecting glowing corridors through the debris field. The corridors were outlined in blue energy markers, guides for crippled Dominion ships. Marshal, whispered the Lyran envoy. They're showing us where to go. Kal said nothing. One Dominion cruiser, engines failing, drifted toward a corridor. No weapons locked on it. No shots fired. Instead, Terran drones detached from the TNS Valor, towing the crippled vessel gently into the corridor's center. Telemetry confirmed it. Oxygen was restored aboard the Dominion ship. Pressure field stabilized. Automated hatches sealed leaks. It was rescue. The Dominion officers stared at their screens, unable to reconcile the sight. They slaughtered 9,000 ships, hissed the adjutant. Now they offer aid? They offer judgment, Kal muttered. Punchline hit. Mercy from predators is not peace. It's reminder. Throughout the Sol system, every colony tuned in. The broadcast wasn't encrypted. It was public. Terran Command streamed the operation across Dominion channels, showing medical teams in vacuum suits entering alien ships, tending to the wounded. No commentary. No propaganda. Just quiet efficiency. One feed showed a Terran medic placing a rebrother over the mouth of a VOF trooper, the same species that had mocked humans as relics. The trooper stared up, bleeding, unable to understand why his killer saved him. The caption below the live feed displayed a simple phrase: "No enemy too broken to heal." Across the galaxy, audiences froze. On dozens of worlds, citizens who had cheered Dominion conquest felt something they hadn't in generations: discomfort. The feed was supposed to be their triumph. Instead, it was a mirror dot inside the Terran flagship. Commander Idris Haile watched the results without expression. "Casualty retrieval at 43%, reported an officer. "Proceed," he said. "Marshal Call's flagship is within range," the communications tech added. "They're refusing aid. Transmit again." The same phrase repeated across every Dominion frequency, unaltered. "We do not kill prisoners." Call closed his eyes. The words carried no arrogance, no cruelty, only certainty. He finally spoke. "They're treating this as trial procedure." The Lyran envoy turned. "Trial?" Call gestured toward the feed. "They record every battle, every casualty, every recovery. They fight as if every act will be judged later." He wasn't wrong. Each Terran ship's registry logs streamed openly, recording timestamps, life sign recoveries, and aid metrics. None of it classified. All of it archived. The Dominion, which had built its empire on conquest without consequence, was watching the concept of accountability take physical form. Some officers wept. Others raged. Most simply stared. The ceasefire held. For 6 hours, the humans rendered aid to the very fleets that had come to annihilate them. Broadcast drones orbited, capturing every moment. Across the core worlds, silent audiences saw Terran medics pull Dominion captains from vacuum, heard the calm repetition of one message over and over: "You are safe. You are captured. You will live." It was not mercy to them, it was humiliation beyond comprehension. But to others, in corners of the galaxy the Dominion had crushed, it was revelation. The footage spread faster than sensors could contain it. Planetary governments hesitated. Subjugated colonies sent encrypted transmissions with a single line of text: "If they spare monsters, perhaps they will free us." On board the Sanctity of Order, Kale stood in silence. Watching Terran drones dock to his ruined hull, he whispered to no one, "Power that chooses restraint is the most dangerous kind." Outside his viewport, the blue med corridors shimmered like arteries of light connecting predator and prey. Rewriting the laws of fear. It began with a leak. Hours after the ceasefire, as Dominion ships limped home through the blue-lit medical corridors, encrypted packets spread across the galactic net. They weren't propaganda, not from the victors or the defeated. They were recordings time-stamped, verified, unaltered, pulled from Terran archives that Dominion AI had quietly scraped in its arrogance. First file was labeled Doctrine of Contingency Authorization. Human Systems Command. Its contents detonated across the galaxy like a moral supernova. The footage opened with a quiet conference room. Human officers stood around a holographic map of settled space, their faces marked by exhaustion, not malice. 20 fleets, said the admiral in the recording, each hidden within refugee corridors, not strike lines. They're not to engage unless fired upon. Priority remains evacuation. The Dominion networks exploded with disbelief. Commentators shouted over one another. Analysts declared the files fraudulent. But cross-verification from captured Terran databanks confirmed every coordinate, every deployment order. The fleets that had annihilated 10,000 Dominion ships were the same ones that had been shielding millions of non-human civilians long before open war began. Punchline hit. They were saving lives while we prepared conquest. On the Dominion capital, Grand Marshal Kale watched the files in silence. Each segment was colder than the last logistics manifests showing humanitarian supply lines, encrypted transmissions coordinating planetary shelters, medical aid schedules. Every document bore the same seal: Terran Command, Non-Combatant Protection Division. The words tasted like irony. Humanity, whom they'd labeled as relics, had built a network of safety across the very borders the Dominion claimed to defend. "Marshal," said the Lyran envoy, her crystalline frame dimming, "these are impossible. They contradict every intelligence report." Kal's mandibles clicked once. Then our intelligence was never information. It was justification. The broadcast feed cut to another file, timestamp 4 months before the war. A Terran admiral speaking softly before an audience of planetary governors. "We don't want war," she said. "But if they come, we must hold the lines long enough to save the innocent." Even them. The phrase echoed through translation networks. Dominion citizens replayed it until it burned into the public consciousness. The myth of human savagery cracked. Civilians who had cheered for vengeance now saw the ledger of mercy: 20 fleets protecting 22 million refugees. The numbers scrolled across holoscreens quantified compassion that the Dominion could neither dismiss nor match. On world after world, spontaneous demonstrations erupted. Students carried banners reading, "Not monsters, Guardians." Veterans of subjugation wars threw away their medals. The Dominion news feeds tried to censor the coverage. Instead, the blackout only magnified curiosity. Inside the war-torn command deck of the Sanctity of Order, Kal reviewed one final file, a transmission log marked Phase 0 evacuation routes. It detailed the exact placement of every Terran fleet, each position not for conquest, but protection. The routes aligned perfectly with the civilian escape paths now flooding Dominion networks. He leaned back, mandibles trembling. "They never saw dominance," he murmured. "They sought to endure. Then what was this war to them?" "Ask the Lyran envoy." "Evidence," Kal said. "For a tribunal that will judge us all." The envoy's body flickered with dim light. "Then the verdict is already written." Outside, Dominion fleets drifted toward home, their wounded tended by Terran medics. The same hands that had pulled triggers now applied bandages. The footage played on every surviving ship's comms, a silent parade of moral inversion. Punchline hit. The barbarians built sanctuaries. The enlightened built graves. In the days that followed, the Dominion Senate convened emergency sessions. Debates collapsed into confessionals. Generals resigned live on broadcast. The Dominion's mythic image civilized order opposed to chaos crumbled under data, signed and time-stamped by human hands. And through it all, the Terrans said nothing. No declaration, no triumph. Just the continued hum of their fleets maintaining humanitarian corridors for species that had sought their extinction. In the far core. A historian of the Valari Consortium wrote the first neutral account. Humanity did not win through strength alone. They won through preparedness so vast it disguised itself as mercy. Kal read the line and felt the weight of it. He looked out from his shattered flagship toward the faint gleam of Sol. Distant and unapproachable, the humans had planned for this war before it began, not to conquer, but to reveal. They had hidden compassion beneath the mask of ruthlessness, and when the galaxy finally looked beneath, it found something terrifying. a species that had mastered both vengeance and virtue-choosing always, the one that frightened its enemies most. The second wave arrived before the wounded had even finished screaming. Across Dominion space, emergency signals had summoned reinforcements, 30,000 ships from border sectors and allied factions. They emerged from slip space in disciplined rows, engines blazing gold. Commanders watched the scattered wreckage from the first battle and concluded the obvious: the Terrans had halted out of exhaustion. Mercy was mistaken for weakness. Within seconds, their formations locked and targeting grids flared to life. Plasma arrays charged. Across open channels, they broadcast their intent vengeance for the fallen. Inside the TNS Valor, Commander Idris Haleh listened to the enemy transmissions in silence. His bridge crew waited for orders, faces illuminated by the flicker of tactical screens. "Authorization?" asked the weapons officer. Hill's reply was calm. "Doctrine Theta 7. Disable only. Record everything." The order rippled through Terran command net. 67 ships shifted posture, not to retreat, not to flee, but to prepare for surgical engagement. Their drives brightened to white fire, vector thrusters aligning in mirrored arcs. When the Dominion reinforcements opened fire, the void turned blinding. 10,000 plasma bolts struck the human line in synchronized fury, only to scatter harmlessly against refractive fields that sang with magnetic resonance. The same trick perfected. This time the humans moved before the light faded. Rail batteries cycled at full capacity. Kinetic slugs screamed into the darkness, each round tuned not for annihilation, but for precision. The first volley struck with surgical brutality. Dominion warships lost engines, not hulls. Reactors shut down cleanly, power cores vented, command decks intact. One after another, entire squadrons went dark alive, powerless, stunned. Punchline hit. "They're disarming us like children." Across the fleet, Dominion officers shouted in panic as systems collapsed under EMP shockwaves and microfragment impacts. Ships drifted, tumbling gently. No explosions. No final deaths. Only silence multiplied. The Terran fleet advanced methodically, their rails firing in rhythmic sequence 32-second intervals, 3-round bursts. Each salvo logged, each impact archived. After the first hour, 7,000 Dominion ships were neutralized. After the third, 16,000. By the sixth hour, 28,000 vessels floated powerless around Mars orbit, engines cold. Weapons severed, not one was destroyed. On the sanctity of order, Grand Marshal Kyle watched the battle unfold from a crippled command deck. His own ship, barely functional, drifted at the edge of the engagement zone. Every display around him showed the same numbers: damage reports without deaths, statistics without slaughter. He could not look away. "This isn't war." The Lyran envoy whispered beside him. "No," Kyle said softly. "This is demonstration." Dominion reinforcements had expected wrath and received restraint sharper than any vengeance. Human ships moved like surgeons through chaos, cutting arteries without spilling blood. Their targeting algorithms calculated weak points within centimeters thruster joints, communication spines, weapon conduits. Every shot ended a ship's capacity to fight, never its existence. When one Dominion dreadnought broke formation and fled, the Terrans tracked it for 11 minutes, matched trajectory, and fired a single slug that pierced its engine core without touching the crew compartments. The dreadnought drifted to a halt, intact. Across broadcast networks, the numbers rolled in real time: 6 hours. 28,000 ships disabled. 0 confirmed kills. The galaxy stared. The Dominion's myth of invincibility had been replaced by an even more terrifying truth. Human control so absolute it bordered on divine. Punchline hit. They choose who breathes and who only watches. After the 6th hour, the Terran flagship transmitted a message across all frequencies. Engagement concluded. All surviving fleets will be evacuated. Ceasefire corridors remain open. No threats. No triumph. Only instruction. In the ruins of command, Kale bowed his head. The Dominion had once believed mercy to be weakness, restraint to be hesitation. Now it was weaponized compassion, precise, deliberate, unanswerable. He whispered to himself, they could have ended us. Instead, they measured us. As the last plasma flare faded into the void, the Terran formation powered down, leaving only the steady glow of med corridors stretching between disabled fleets. Billions across the galaxy watched in silence. For the first time in history, war itself looked obsolete. And the name humanity became synonymous not with brutality, but mastery. The trials were not held in darkness. 3 weeks after the last shot, the surviving Dominion admirals were escorted into orbit above Earth aboard a Terran judicial station called the Equinox. It was not a prison. It was glass and silence. The station's great chamber looked down on the blue arc of the planet below, its curve framed by sunlight and shadow. Admiral Orion Call stood among the accused, armor stripped, insignia removed. Around him, the remnants of the Dominion's command structure, 11 species, 26 admirals waited in restrained dignity. No chains. No guards with weapons drawn. Only a circle of Terran officers, calm and watchful. A voice filled the chamber, clear, human, and without emotion. This tribunal recognizes the responsibility of those who ordered war upon unarmed populations. Evidence provided by your own fleets confirms your actions. You will stand accountable under the Charter of Sentient Conduct. Kal lifted his gaze. You speak of justice, he said slowly. But justice from victors is still revenge. The presiding officer, Commander Idris Hale, met his eyes. Revenge ends wars. Justice prevents their return. The screens around the chamber came alive. Footage from Dominion archives, planetary bombings, slave transports, forced assimilations flashed beside images of Terran rescue operations and med corridors. Every statistic was displayed without comment. No speeches. Only numbers. Civilian deaths prevented, 22 million. Dominion military. Casualties, 9,800. Duration of hostilities, 6 hours. 41 minutes. Call's throat tightened. You recorded even that. We record everything, Hale replied. Because truth must outlive us. Punchline hit. You can hide from defeat, not from evidence. The tribunal continued for days. No executions. No torture. The Dominion admirals were sentenced not to death, but to rebuild what they had broken: planetary reconstruction, reparations, declassification of archives. Those who refused were exiled to uninhabited worlds with survival supplies and an open transmitter. Across the galaxy, the reaction was disbelief. A species capable of annihilating empires had chosen law over domination, dominion. Citizens freed from censorship for the first time in centuries broadcast the hearings live. The sight of their once untouchable leaders standing silent before human judges became the defining image of a new era. In the core systems, rebellions ignited. Not of violence, but of conscience. Entire fleets declared independence, pledging allegiance to the Charter of Equitable Worlds, a framework built on the principles humanity had demonstrated in battle: proportionality, transparency, restraint. Within a single standard year, the Dominion ceased to exist. Its emblems were dismantled, its anthem silenced. The galaxy's new symbol became the spiral seal of the Charter, a circle enclosing many smaller orbits equal, Unbroken, human-designed. Punchline hit. The war that began with mockery ended with a constitution. Kal, now a prisoner without bars, was assigned to Earth's southern hemisphere, working alongside reconstruction crews restoring Dominion refugee colonies. There, he watched human engineers build water plants beside alien temples, schools beside memorials. They never spoke of victory. They simply worked. One morning, he asked the young Terran officer beside him, "Why do you help us?" "After what we did?" The officer shrugged. "Because mercy isn't kindness," he said. "It's discipline." The answer lingered with Kal long after the sun set. Across the former Dominion worlds, fleets once built for war now patrolled for famine relief. Commerce treaties replaced tribute routes. Former slaves became governors. The galaxy adapted not out of fear of humanity's strength, but out of fear of disappointing its example. From the void came new oaths, sworn not to empires but to the Charter. The first line etched into every declaration was the same: "We will measure power by the lives it protects." Kal stood beneath an alien sky, watching Terran transports vanish into the clouds. He remembered the day he had laughed at them, those steel-worshipping relics from a forgotten planet. Now, the relics had become law. He bowed his head. "May we prove worthy of what we feared." Above him, the orbital lights of the equinox burned steady, marking the new center of civilization, not a throne, but a courtroom. At first, it looked like background noise. In the weeks after the Dominion's collapse, Terran Command monitored the rim routine spectral sweeps, standard patrol telemetry. The war was over. The Charter ratified. The galaxy, for the first time in memory, was silent. Then the pattern emerged. A repeating pulse deep beyond mapped space, 3 long tones. 3 short, 3 long. Morse code. Ancient, deliberate, unmistakably Terran. Across the command decks of 20 fleets. Silence settled again, this time heavier. Commander Idris Hale stood aboard the TMS Valor, eyes on the shifting signal pattern projected above the table. "Confirm source triangulation." "Negative coordinates, sir," said the communications officer. "Origin shifts every 20 seconds. "It's being relayed. By what?" "Unknown structure. Gravitic distortion consistent with artificial latticework radius. 6 astronomical units." Hale's brow furrowed. A beacon that size wasn't built, it was anchored. And the signal language was older than most of his crew's grandparents. He replayed the pulse. Each tone repeated the same frequency band humanity had used in its pre-faster-than-light centuries. SOS. Not distress. A call. Punchline hit. "Something out there remembers us." The message spread through Terran networks within hours. Analysts dissected every waveform. Historians cross-referenced Cold War relic transmissions. It wasn't a copy. It was a reply. The Dominion's collapse had barely settled before speculation consumed the Charter worlds. Some called it debris echo. Others whispered of forgotten probes returning from exile. But the encoded checksum at the end of the transmission broke all debate. Single phrase and binary. Authorization. Eclipse protocol. Awaiting contact. No known Terran fleet carried that clearance. In the great chamber of the United Systems Assembly, delegates gathered under the new seal of the Charter. Holographic stars glimmered around them. A Valari ambassador trembled as she spoke. "You swore the war was done. What now wakes beyond your borders?" Hale stood at the center, calm as stone. "Whatever built those beacons uses our language. That means it's ours to face." Across the void, the Terran fleets came alive once more. Engines flared, systems rearmed, med bays refitted not for conquest, but for readiness. The galaxy watched in uneasy reverence as the ships of Earth reoriented toward the rim. Every vector pointing into darkness. No banners unfurled. No speeches. Only formation. From orbit, the sight was breathtaking. 67 warships forming the spearhead. 20 humanitarian fleets arrayed behind them. A line of light cutting toward the edge of the known stars. Broadcast drones recorded the event for the archives. The official designation, Outer Reconnaissance Initiative. Unofficially, it was something older. The same discipline, the same resolve that had once turned mercy into strength. Call watched from the surface of Earth as the fleets departed. Beside him stood the Lyran envoy, her crystalline body refracting sunlight into soft blues. "You're sending them into the dark again," she said. "They never stop belonging there," Call replied. He had learned. In the aftermath, but the humans didn't fear the unknown, they listened to it. Every war, every silence, was another signal waiting to be understood. On the Valor, Hawley stood before the viewing window, Earth shrinking behind him. Fleet status? All ships aligned. Outer Rim intercept course established. Estimated contact zone in 12 days. Maintain silence until confirmation. No broadcasts. Yes, sir. He turned once more toward the black horizon, where the lattice signal pulsed like a heartbeat between the stars. On cue. Every Terran ship dimmed its lights, slipping into formation darkness. Hulls reflected faint starlight, cold and resolute. The signal repeated, stronger now, as if aware it was being followed. SOS. Authorization confirmed. Welcome back. Hawley exhaled, quiet. So it begins again. No fear. No triumph. Only readiness. Behind him, the hum of engines deepened, a chorus of steel and will. Humanity turned its fleets toward the unknown, carrying both the memory of restraint and the certainty of return. Beyond the rim, the beacons kept pulsing, each one alive with Terran code, each one waiting, and the galaxy, for the first time, understood what that meant. The humans were not done. They were preparing.